Alrighty, I think let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're so excited to have you join us for this webinar about how to conquer the overwhelming call volume. And we're also super excited to have Stephanie Parker from Hetland ENT with us today to discuss how her practice communication challenges in order to improve the overall patient experience. We also want to say thank you to athenahealth for partnering with us on this webinar. But before we kick things off, I'd love to have Stephanie introduce herself and tell us a bit about her and Hetland ENT. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for having me today. Yes, my name is Stephanie Parker. I am currently employed as the director of Hetland Ear, Nose, and Throat and Bismarck Sinus Center. What that is we are a specialty ENT clinic up in Bismarck, North Dakota, and an ambulatory surgery center. We came into existence back in 2018. I currently have 4 providers and about 6 ancillary staff. And with a busy practice and small staff, my day can look anything like being at my desk for an administrative role, all the way down to assisting in patient care or running phones and reception all within the same day. So very pertinent to the topic we have today.
Wow, that seems intense. So it seems like your practice is also growing.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. 2018, we functioned out of 1 building, and currently we're functioning out of 2 separate buildings on an everyday basis.
That's super exciting. Congrats to all the success. And yeah, also to introduce myself, I'm Simon Lorenz, one of the co-founders and co-CEOs of Klara, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's webinar. But again, thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here. We're so honored to have you here and share your experiences. As a next step, let's quickly go into the agenda so that you know what you can expect over the next 45 minutes. So we will be spending the first 30 minutes discussing the communication in healthcare today, including challenges that practices are facing, then also which channels patients are demanding, how practices can automate workflows and routine communications. And lastly, we'll discuss some forward-thinking ideas to improve the patient experience. What is important to know, through all of these sections, I'll have Stephanie share her real-life experiences as it relates to Hetland ENT, because that's actually what counts. The theory is always nice to hear, but the practice is what we all hear about. And for the last 10 minutes, we'll do a brief Q&A. And if you think you wanna ask any questions during the webinar, just pop them in the QA section in the bottom of the window. And then depending on the number of questions and the amount of time we have, we will try to get as many questions as we can. But you can then also obviously reach out to us afterwards. We'll leave our email addresses, how you can contact us at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm excited to have this webinar, Stephanie. It's awesome to have you here. So I think we're going to have a very good conversation today. So to get started, let's take a look at some of the top communication challenges that the healthcare industry is facing today. And I always start with, we all know that healthcare is a service, and part of the service is the procedure and the surgery, but the rest of it is communication and service. And if you ask kind of patients where the problems are, and you look at the patient complaints, you see that 96% of all patient complaints have actually nothing to do with the actual care. They're all about patient communication and service. Oops. And what is the reason for this? It's pretty simple. It is mostly the phone. And you all know this when you try to reach medical practices that are purely operating over the phone or have a patient portal that you don't use that much. And the staff also knows this by playing phone tag all the time. So this causes a lot of issues, first of all, on the practice side, where people are wasting a lot of time trying to reach patients. And it also is bad for the patients, but I'll get to that in a second. So to dive a little bit deeper into the phone issues, you can see here that 13% of calls in the healthcare industry are abandoned, which is pretty significant if you think that 30%, 13% is a high number, and these are people who are also scheduling new appointments, or it could be urgent calls that that are being missed by the medical practices. And 34% of all calls are missed. And those missed calls, 85% of patients will not even leave a voicemail. So you don't even know why they have reached out, what the importance was, how urgent it was. And we'll talk to Stephanie about this in a little bit, what she thinks about this. But the result of this is obviously if phone tag creates a lot of operational burden on the staff side. So on average, staff or medical staff or staff in a medical practice wastes around 3 hours per day per staff member just playing phone tag and trying to reach patients. So on the one hand, staff gets inefficient, and if the practice works inefficiently, that also has a negative effect on patients. And patients not only leave or hang up the phone or call a different practice, but they also leave negative reviews. You can see here that bad reviews, 94% of patients use online reviews to choose a doctor, right? And so it's really important to also pay attention to this. And we all know this when we also choose our restaurants or something on Amazon. It's the same thing in healthcare. So, Stephanie, I'd love to hand the mic over to you now. And get kind of your take on this. So my first question to you is, before you adopted a patient communication platform, what challenges in regards to communication did you and your practice have around communication?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we were able to bring in Klara with the text messaging platform system, one of the biggest hurdles was just getting those calls to come in. Even with multi-phone lines, patients were, not getting through. They were getting bumped into a voicemail box that was being answered by one person, the same person who was checking in the live patient in front of us, maybe not able to actually get to that voicemail for hours. And when they did, possibly not being the right person for that communication. They may not have the answers. They may have to move on to the secondary staff to look for that answer before they could even reach back to that patient. So we were finding a big delay in our service being available to patients. It was great to have that huge volume coming to us, but we weren't able to efficiently deal with it.
Got it. And what did patients say when you were not able to handle that volume on the staff side?
Patients would become very impatient. Sometimes we would go to the voicemail box and we'd have 30 voicemails. And as you were working through them, they might be 2 or 3 from the exact same patient. And so it made us feel really bad, but 2, it was kind of wasting our time getting through those. So the process was really breaking down. Sometimes we'd have patients drive over and show up in our office to try to speak to somebody, which would then become a workflow issue to the patients that were here with a scheduled appointment.
Got it. Yeah. And did you, before you decided, obviously, to go and choose a better patient communication platform, did you also try to hire more staff, or did you try to increase the hours, or how did you solve? Did you try to solve it also in a different way? This increase in communication volume?
Being a new practice, we weren't quite sure where our volume was going to be. And so being very business conscious, we opened with an adequate amount of staff, trying to figure out where it was going to be. Conversations quickly arose of inadequacies in the patient communication area, but trying to pinpoint if it was just in a secretarial role with those initial calls coming in, or if it was possibly that secondary role in a nursing staff to be able to field some of those more in-depth conversations. And it was really hard to know what was going to be the correct next step. We were already partnered with athenahealth, so we utilized and tried the patient portal, which is linked to an email. We found really quickly patients were very reluctant to give us emails for some reason. And also email put in a time frame where patients would say, oh, I only check my email once every couple days. And so wasn't answering our call of need at that time.
Got it. That's super interesting. So did you see, talking a little bit about the impact of these challenges, right, and the patients being frustrated, what did you see on thinking about the practice as a business a little bit? Did you experience higher costs or time wasted or even less patients showing up? Can you walk me through a little bit of that as well?
Yeah, financially, it was starting to take an impact on us because myself and my staff were staying late into the evening hours trying to make those return phone calls after we had already taken care of the 9 to 5 patients in the office. So it was becoming costly from a staffing standpoint at that point. And then also we were also noticing that we were losing some abilities from the patients that may have left urgent needs in that voicemail box earlier in the day and had chosen another provider in the area of which they were able to communicate with quicker.
Yeah, okay. That is obviously a big impact to the practice. Thank you for sharing that, and we'll talk about some other aspects of this in a little bit. But moving on to the second topic, about patients' demand for new communication channels, specifically, obviously, talking about secure messaging. I think what we are seeing, and also with the rise of smartphones, most patients today would prefer to text a business compared to calling on the phone. And there are huge benefits for businesses that adopt texting. As you can see, SMS or text messaging has a 98% open rate compared to email, and 60% of customers read text within 1 to 5 minutes after receiving them. That is really important to know because you can't, as we talked about it before, the phone is the problem, and we need to find alternative ways how to solve the phone problem. And if you have a communication channel, speaking a little bit theoretically about it, that is not very much adopted, then you won't solve the phone problem. So you need a communication channel that is highly adopted. And as you can see, the SMS or the texting route is a highly adopted channel. In addition to the 83% of consumers would like to receive appointment reminders via text, but only 20% of businesses currently send them this way. All of this proves the key to improving your patient satisfaction is simply to listen to your patients. And, as you can see, only 20% of the businesses are doing that. But patients and customers want that. I will add that there may be many skeptics out there who will say things like, my patients are older, they don't want to text. Once again, this goes back to listening to your patients and providing multiple access points to your practice. Don't silo your communication into one channel. You've got to provide multiple ways for them to contact your practice. Texting, calling, voicemail, etc. Having a website, chatbot. It all needs to be available for patients so that you give the option to the patient. And by the way, if you give alternative ways for the patients to contact you, then it also takes pressure off the phone lines. So at the end of the day, it's key to meet your patients where they are at that moment. If they're on the website, allow them to contact you very easily, not give them just a phone call that they can reach out to you. So I talked a lot here. Stephanie, I'd love to have your point of view, and feel free to disagree with any of what I said. This is obviously an open conversation. But, just a high level, we saw this, that, a lot of patients, over 80% are requesting to text with their practice or with their doctor. Are you seeing the same thing from your patients, or what are they asking for, and how do they want to communicate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2018, when we opened, is when we saw this real big barrier of how to get these patients heard, the phone calls, all that kind of stuff coming in. And we started searching for what the best option was. Talking to our patients, they didn't have any ideas for us yet at this time, other than make us available. We want to talk to a body. We want to talk to somebody. I don't want to leave a message in an empty voicemail box for somebody to come back to us. So we started looking for what our options out there were. Because currently up in this North Dakota area, there wasn't a communication platform that was texting at that point that we were aware of. None of our competitors here in town had anything like that. The only thing that they had was appointment reminders that were going out via text. But there was no communication back and forth with that patient. And so that was really what we were searching for. And when we found Klara had those options. They had that ability to not only send a patient information, but to receive immediately from a patient, to open those lines of communication. And when we first adapted it, it was one of those 50-50 kind of things. Patients were like, what is this? I don't want to give you any information. We're not familiar with this option. So with giving patients more information, the HIPAA secure platform of it, knowing that it was coming to a person and not to an auto-generated computer, gave them that comfort that they wanted. One of the things that we heard in communication back with our patients right away was, oh my gosh, I knew I was talking to Nurse Stephanie because of the way she spoke to me in her text message. And that's one of the things that just kind of hit home with us. The patient knew who they were talking to by their name on the bottom, but also in the fact that they had met us prior. And we were able to answer very in-depth questions very quickly. And so patients widely loved it. We had our apprehensive patients, just as you spoke of. Generational, we see anybody from 0 to 99 in our office. And so some of those older ones were like, nope, no way, this is not an option for me. And as a provider and as an office manager, we respect that. We know that that might not be the correct communication tool for them. They are a person who wants to hear that voice on it. And so we have been able to adapt that side of it also. Another side of it is being able to see somebody. During COVID, when COVID hit big here in our area last April, we were shut for a while to our physical location, and we were able to do telemedicine with our patients. And for patients to actually see your face, to see that provider, to be able to show us physically what they were seeing on themselves, really was huge ability to be able to connect with our patients that we would have never been able to do just via phone call coming in.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say this. How did you select, obviously you selected Klara at the end of the day, but how did you do the selection process? What was important for you when you selected a secure messaging application?
So both me and the owner of our business, Dr. Andrew Hetland, kind of started a search in avenues that we felt were similar to us, as in small clinics, as in small ASCs, to see what they were using out there. And to be honest, we came fairly empty-handed fairly quickly. There wasn't a lot of options out there that people were using that were interactive. Many platforms to be able to send stuff to a patient, but not that open communication. And I'll be 100% honest, I don't remember exactly where we came across Klara. I want to say it might have been in one of our ENT platforms or maybe a Google search. I honestly don't know because it was a very busy time. But we signed up. We went through some demos, and both of us kind of saw that light bulb, like, this might be the ticket.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm asking because, I mean, there's obviously some other tools out there, and we offer secure messaging as a functionality, but we see ourselves as a holistic end-to-end patient communication platform, right? We're not just servicing one specific aspect. We're not just doing video calls, but we're covering the entire patient journey. Was that an important aspect for you, that you said, hey, we don't want to have 8-point solution for this and another 4-point solution for that? Was that something interesting? What did this kind of, was that important for you?
On trial date, I can't say that we had thought about that yet. We were literally in that very early stages of just needing help with our communication and how to touch base with our patients quicker. It quickly grew into a all-encompassing avenue for our patients, becoming preoperative, sending instructions, receiving information back and forth, being able to have interactive forms that can be generated, sent out. These were all things that evolved for us over a time span that we weren't initially thinking, but I can't imagine our day without them now.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. What would you say to other practices? You know, they obviously know you chose Klara, we're having this webinar, but what would you say in general that a practice that wants to solve their phone problem and is looking into a communication platform like Klara, what do they have to look out for now that you're a successful user on the platform? What do you think are the key things, how to select the right tool for your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Key things to me, since we are at this point, have been functionality, going out to your patients, coming back in your office. One of the abilities here, like I stated, is we have 2 separate businesses in 2 separate buildings, which means that we're working together, but independently in our locations. Klara gives us the option to be able to inter-clinic speak to us directly in that same communication with a patient, providing a whole care. One of my physicians might be in another building and I need to run something by him before replying directly to this patient. And it's something that takes place in seconds versus having to find them, maybe make a phone call, maybe walk across a parking lot. So that to me is huge in a platform. Platforms that connect to your EMR. Klara wasn't linked with Athena when we first purchased. Game changer. There's so many capabilities between the 2 systems that keeps everything very, very organized and very smooth running for us in a professional staffing level here.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm happy we're obviously now integrated with Athena and so many other more EHRs and 3 more, that this is a key aspect how to use our platform. Let's move on to the next topic on how the automation of these patient communication workflows have helped you save time. And maybe to just give an overview on this. How we think about the entire patient journey. Like we mentioned before, there are many steps to the patient journey, from before the visit, speaking about scheduling, patient intake and instructions, appointment reminders, to during the visit, which is obviously the video call, but also then the no-show engagement if the patient didn't show up, but also everything after the visit, asking for feedback and reviews, doing the entire follow-up until a recall. During each of those stages, take time from the staff, right? And is also taking time away from focusing on the patient that is potentially in front of you at that very moment. So, if we look at the research, it shows that 50% of physicians' time is spent on paperwork, while only 27% is spent on patient care, right? That is already like talking around the heavy administrative burden, and also talking about the staff burnout that we see in medical practices, not only for the physicians, but also for the staff members. So this is extremely frustrating for the fact that physicians just to help patients, not spending time doing paperwork. But what's even more critical or frustrating is that busy work costs physicians an average of $50,000 of revenue each year, which is a massive number. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how do I fix this issue of wasted time? The answer is simple. You need to automate the routine tasks that are taking up most of the time. And when we talk about routine tasks, we mean things that really don't require a physical touch, where it is okay that a automated message can go out to a patient, like appointment reminders. Everybody knows this example, but you can do this with so many other things along the entire patient journey. You can ask people automatically for their paperwork before they come to the offices, etc. So, for example, here you can see how your practice can automate pre-visit communication without doing any manual work. So this is an example just for everyone. This is highly customizable and obviously individual to any practice. So here we say 7 days before the visit, the patient gets a text with an appointment reminder to confirm and reschedule the appointment. Then 2 days before the visit, the patient gets a text with a link to submit the insurance card, intake forms, and other necessary information. Everything obviously HIPAA compliant. And then a day before the visit, the patient will get another reminder that includes instructions for the visit. So as you can see, automating this one patient workflow allows a practice to save staff time that would otherwise be spent playing phone tag with the patient, to ask for the insurance card, to confirm the appointment, to remind of the appointment, but also reduce in-office waiting time for the patient, right? Because the patient can complete all the pre-visit information before the appointment. And what is also extremely important, once the patient has kind of been reminded and already filled out their paperwork and submitted their insurance card, the likelihood that this patient shows up is obviously much higher, which is important for everyone. Patient show rate is extremely critical, especially when there's a procedure involved. And I'm sure Stephanie agrees with that, but we'll talk about this in a second. So with this, just one example, imagine automating multiple touch points throughout the entire patient journey, right? The time savings and ROI potential is endless, and it really depends on how you see it. Most importantly, it allows for a streamlined patient communication experience that patients will love. Why will they love it? Because they know you don't spend time on things that you shouldn't spend time on, and you spend actually time with them when they're with you. So instead of getting lost in jumbled mess of phone calls and voicemails, the entire patient journey becomes like as seamless as possible, and ensures that no information or patients get lost in the conversation. Even better, when you're able to sync this communication, like we said, with the EHR, and Stephanie, you know this firsthand because you started without an integration in the beginning and then moved into an integration, as we are now able to integrate with athenahealth since quite a while now. You can make sure that all the information syncs directly into the EHR, so staff will have access to all patients whenever they need it. Now, Stephanie, coming back to you, I'd love to hear some examples of how your practice automates some of the communication workflows. So maybe to start off, what types of patient interactions does your practice, Hetland ENT, automate throughout the entire patient journey, before the visit and after the visit?
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it spot on, Simon, with the idea of, yes, we get the appointment reminders, but what past that? We have set ours up so that they are automating out many of the components that we know slow down the process once they hit that front door. We make those communications happening prior to getting here, and when we see those engagements happening and coming back to us, we know that that patient's more than likely going to show. Once they get into our office, we want to make sure that it's quick everybody's time is short, and we want to make sure it goes smooth. So by automating those communication platforms, asking for those insurance cards, having them sign HIPAA forms, all of those things come back to us, and it's literally a click, click, drop into the patient's chart. It's not standing at the front desk, searching through a wallet, possibly forgetting an insurance card, all those kinds of things that were practiced prior to us automating these out and taking a little bit of manpower to throw them into the correct spots in the chart, which used to take us much, much more when it comes to that side of it. We also send out post appointments when it comes to surveys to see, gives patients that opportunity to speak very, very candid about how their experience was with us. And that's what we want to hear. We want to hear everything that they loved, everything that they, would like to be seen different, any of those kinds of things. And the automation takes care of that for us. We don't have somebody sitting there clicking a button, sending a piece of paper out the door that's costly, anything like that. So we use many of those. Also, forms, e-forms have become an everyday practice for us. They're built into Klara. They're super quick and easy. We will see a lot up here of that 16, 17-year-old patient that shows up in our office who's still legally a minor without a guardian. So we need to be able to have the correct paperwork in place to be able to seek treatment and provide treatment for these. Those would be things that we would normally have had to send that patient away to return with that guardian, where now we can send them an electronic form that shows up on their phone. They can fill it out, sign it, send it back to us, and that appointment goes on, all usually within less than 5 minutes. It's been a huge game changer when it comes to that kind of stuff. We also send out post-op instructions automatically out of our Klara system, because what'll happen is patients will leave and they'll say, "What did you tell me?" And so now they've got it right there on their phone, word for word, exactly what was said. Athena also has the ability for patients to log into their portal and be able to see a care summary. And that is very similar, but yet different, because the care summary is going to be their exact appointment. And that message coming from Klara is going to be the specifics of, I want you to take this much, this many days, that kind of stuff. So most of these processes have all become automatic in our office and don't take up very much staff time.
That's so interesting. And maybe also for, the audience to hear, how did you set up these, maybe also follow-ups did you set them up specific by appointment type or by provider? How did you set them up, maybe that the people understand a little bit more? And you can also, if you have, give an example.
Yeah, currently, I believe all of my automations, I have them set up per appointment type. So when we're scheduling that patient in Athena, if it be a new patient, if it be a follow-up, that's what's linked to that automation that patient's going to start receiving on that side of it. Currently, I don't have anything linked per provider because out of the 4 providers I have, pretty much everything is seamless across the board with that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that is interesting. And if you think about, you mentioned it was a game changer for you. What exactly do you mean by that? Like, how has this improved the productivity or the operational efficiency of your practice?
Yeah, well, like I said, way back to the beginning, when that phone call would come in, it would come into a reception desk. If that was a specific information needed from a nurse or a care provider, that receptionist would have to start trying to call to the back to find this other, staff. They might be over in this building, they might be over in that building, that kind of a thing. So you're physically looking for somebody, where now within Klara, you send it to their bucket. We all work off of our devices all day long, and that gives us the ability in Klara to be able to pick a specific person that we want to reply to this. Maybe it's a group, because I have group buckets. Maybe it's a nursing staff group bucket, and this message is going to get put into that correct person, or maybe it's a specific provider that needs to be the one to receive this. And so we no longer have that hunting down, because we can automatically drop it into their Klara bucket, knowing they're going to see it and take care of it, which was, like I said, saved us a ton of time in our office. Another big one is not having to send patients away when they've forgotten those documents that are needed to continue on with that appointment, because usually they have that connection. They can phone a friend, as we say, to provide them that insurance card or anything like that. So it's definitely put the puzzle pieces smoothly together, or if they don't all show up at once, easy to grab them and put the puzzle pieces together that are needed.
Got it. And if you talk about time savings, it's okay if you don't know the answer to this, but I'm always curious to hear it from you directly, from our customers. Could you put a number to this on a per staff level, especially the people who are on the front lines taking phone calls, like comparing how many hours did they spend before there was Klara on the phone per day versus how much are they spending now?
So I don't know that I've ever broke it down in hours. We did average at one time that we were spending roughly 3 hours in phone tag back and forth between patients, answering those phones, that kind of stuff. The thing that we've measured now is how long our time is before we reach back to that patient. We usually see anywhere between 3 to 12 minutes is our average reply to the patient, back from the patient. So that whole process has really sped up. I don't have staff staying late in the afternoons to reconnect with the patients anymore. The fact that Klara, like any platform on these bases now, are so easily interactive. There's a couple of us that you still find sometimes checking them on the weekends and replying to that particular patient, those kinds of things. Even though we are on Monday through Friday, it gives us the ability to. It's so quick and easy.
Yeah, because texting is such an engaging and easy thing to do. Obviously, anyone can decide this for themselves. But how much, you said now it takes you 3 to plus minutes to get back to patients. How much was it before? Do you know that?
Hours.
Wow. So that must, be a big impact on, patients actually, not losing patients to other practices or the patient satisfaction rate.
Absolutely. About 2-3 months into the use of the Klara platform, we just saw an overwhelming acceptance from our patients. And the other providers in town and around the area would start saying, "What are you using? We've heard this." All those kinds of things. So very, very positive feedback from our patients and our staff.
Amazing. That's great to hear. Just quickly, since we started integrating with Athena, you said that was obviously a game changer. Just a couple of words how this has improved it compared to before. But I think you mentioned this already in the beginning, but it must have been a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem when you have too many platforms can be information and where is it located and what's best. There would be communications coming in through Klara, sometimes verbal texting, sometimes photographs that would really need to be put into that EMR to have continuum of care. And we used to have to be doing some cutting and pasting and getting a little creative or retyping into Athena patient cases, where with the enhancement between the two of them, it's a click, and we're moving that information into that patient's chart so that it makes a nice continuum of care.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way, Stephanie. Thank you for doing this. So we only have like 4 minutes left. This moved very, very quickly. So let's just go to the last part, the idea part, how the forward-thinking ideas to improve patient experience. So let's talk a little bit about this. In this final section, I would love to have you, Stephanie, share some of your learnings from changes Hetland ENT has made in regards to patient, communication and the patient experience, and maybe overall after implementing a new communication and patient experience strategy, what would you say worked? What didn't work? Maybe we start with this quick section.
Yeah, gosh, when it came to work, most all portions of the integration of this platform worked very well. Like I said, it's grown and become even better for us. Just like any platform, there might be portions of it that I don't use, that we just haven't felt, fit the tailor of our business, but they're always there as an option in the backside of it. Things that I can come up with that haven't worked for us, I really can't come up with much. Of course, I don't think about them if we're not using them, but I think there might be possibly a patient scheduling option or helping to automate some patient scheduling. Because of the type of providers and us being a specialty clinic, that doesn't quite fit for us. There has to be a few hoops to get patients in here as a specialty clinic, unlike a primary care. A primary care or a pediatric clinic can see patients for the very first time as a brand new patient. In a specialty clinic, we have to get some things in place before we can do that. So that's one of the things that hasn't worked for us, is to be able to do any kind of self-scheduling at this point. But I would say everything else that we have integrated with Klara really has worked well for us.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll figure this one out too for you, I'm sure. And just thinking forward, how do you think patient communication will be in the future? Like, as you see technology, helping a lot in this part. What do you think? How will patient communication be? I don't know, 5 to 10 years from now.
Wow. Gosh, I've been in this business over 20 years, and sitting here today, I would have never thought that we are where we are now. The idea of patients being able to text, patients being able to send us photos just kind of blows my mind. 10 years from now, I don't know. There's a good chance that we might even be able to provide care on some of these platforms with the way things are going. One of the things, we live up in North Dakota. It's not a great place to live about 6 months of the year, where it's really cold and kind of hard to get around. One of the things that this platform has opened up the opportunity for us is to be able to see what's called our snowbirds. The people that pack up, move down to Arizona, move down to the warmer states, we would lose touch with them, and they would call us and say, oh my gosh, I'm down here, I'm noticing these signs and symptoms, I need to be seen, trying to arrange a flight, all these kinds of things. The platform that we currently are using gives us that opportunity to offer a telemed right here and then and see those patients. That was never an option 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's definitely, I think the future is definitely not going to be more phone calls. It's more automation and taking pressure off the phone lines and really making the patient experience of what it should be about, like about the patient, putting them in the center of the care, and then taking pressure off the staff and off the physicians, off these administrative tasks, and having these tasks be executed by software. Like for example, us on the communication space. I think that will be a very interesting future. What would your thoughts be about that?
Absolutely. I know in my own personal world, the less phone calls I have to make, the better I love it. Paying bills online, taking care of text messages, quick group texting to be able to pull more than one provider in, I think is amazing also. So that's kind of where I foresee our future going, is those kinds of things.
Wonderful. Hey, Stephanie, I know we're a little bit over, but do you have any questions for me? Otherwise, I would jump into I'm going to pick one question because we literally don't have any time for that.
I don't know if I have a specific question other than a statement for you, Simon. I have been excited and happy with everything that Klara and Athena together partnering have provided to us. So my statement to you guys is I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot. We're going to build deeper integrations. We're going to focus a lot more on automations and really taking the pressure off the staff, making the patient experience much more seamless. Well, I don't know if people can also read that we invested heavily in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and in order to automate the patient communication process a lot more. So, for example, triaging patient requests to the right person, not having the patient go through the loop of a phone tree, and also not having, that people spend time on, basically connecting people. That can be done by software. But another exciting things are also that we're covering more workflows. Payments will start soon, that patients can actually pay directly on Klara, which is an interesting workflow, I think. Especially everybody's excited. I personally always love when I can pay via my phone. And then lastly, also talking about group conversations, what you said, which in the end also should be with other practices, so that you can talk about other patients, have two organizations, medical organizations, talk about patients, for example, making patient referrals much easier. So these are the things that we're going to invest in a lot. So I'm also very excited about this. I promised to take one question, and I'm going to take, I think that was one of the first ones I just randomly chose. So for the other ones that I didn't choose your questions, please contact us. We'll get back to you, obviously, as soon as possible. You can contact us on these emails, so I'll leave this on a little bit longer. But one of the questions was, is the text messaging component HIPAA compliant? And the very fast answer to this is yes, it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist. We have very strong operational, technical, and administrative safeguards in this company, and we audit them ourselves very regularly ourselves and also externally. So this is part of our existence. This is why we exist to a certain extent. Wonderful. Stephanie, thank you so much again for taking the time. I think we're at the end of our session. Also, thank you, athenahealth, for partnering with us for this webinar. If you're interested in contacting Klara or Stephanie at Hetland ENT, you can send an email. The email addresses are listed here. But once again, thanks for attending, and we hope to see you at one of our other exciting webinars again. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.